So now let's talk some tropics. As of 8 a.m. this past Friday, we are still continuing to monitor this potential area of development. 80% chance of developing over the next 48 hours, 90% chance of developing past that window. I do believe that this will be our next named storm by the time we get into the end of Friday all the way into early Saturday at the very latest. Right now, it's a good cluster of disorganized showers and thunderstorms in between Hispaniola and Cuba, trying to move up towards the north into this warm water that sits around Turks and Caicos and the southern Bahamas. But also, it's not the only storm that we do have out there. We also have Hurricane Humberto, which did form as of yesterday into Tropical Storm Humberto, and as of early on Friday morning, it strengthened up into a Category 1 storm. Well, Humberto does continue to strengthen. 90-mile-per-hour winds, central pressure of 979 millibars, but not moving at a very fast clip like we've seen many of our tropical systems lately, only moving to the northwest at about 5 miles per hour. So it's going to continue to slowly kick into gear. But the latest trends that we continue to see is Humberto is going to continue to move over to the west and the northwest. It will continue to strengthen. By Saturday morning, forecasted to have 120-mile-per-hour winds. And the highest that we do see on this timestamp, Sunday evening, 145-mile-per-hour winds. That's definitely getting up into high-end Category 4 status, really starting to flirt with that Category 5 status, which it would be the first Category 5 storm I do believe that we've seen in the Atlantic hurricane season so far. Hurricane Aaron might have briefly gotten that criteria, but all of this to say, Hurricane Humberto is something we are continuing to closely monitor, but the good news is as we continue to see this cone extend out into the future, we continue to see a shift up to the north and eventually back out into the east, a very similar path as to what we've seen with many systems so far. That goes for Hurricane Gabrielle, Hurricane Aaron, and Hurricane Fernan. All those systems kind of brushed up or acted like they were going to brush up along the east coast of the United States and then curve back out to sea. Obviously not going to be the best forecast over in Bermuda, so if you have any plans for upcoming fall break cruises that are possibly heading over there, this is something you need to keep a very close eye on. But Humberto does stand as a high-end Category 1 as of right now, but over here to the west, you can see that this potential tropical system that we're monitoring is not too far away. So both of these systems are in the near vicinity of one another, so it could result in a variety of tropical scenarios. So we have Humberto and we have Invest 94L, which is that area I was just telling you about with high chances of development. For the sake of this, we're going to refer to Invest 94L as future Imelda because that's going to be our next named storm, and it's looking more and more likely that Imelda is going to form over the course of the next 24 hours as of Friday. So scenario 1, the storms stay far away from one another, resulting in future Imelda possibly making a landfall in the Carolinas. Now, as of recently, I would say scenario 1 probably has a greater likelihood than scenario 2 or 3 from happening, and you did just get a good look at the long-range future view model runs. But scenario 2 would be Humberto pulls future Imelda away from the U.S. coast, and it could possibly even lead to the merging of two storms, which would allow for a stronger storm to form. But this would be a good scenario because it would pull them away from the eastern U.S. and along with that, obviously away from central Georgia. Now, scenario 3 is something that we rarely see in the Atlantic Ocean. It's something called the Fujiwara effect. This is where two tropical systems can get close to one another, so they can start to rotate one another. So they would happen in this counterclockwise direction. If that were to happen, Humberto obviously forecasted to curve back out into the Atlantic, but if these systems start to influence the path of one another, this could pull Humberto a little bit closer over to the east coast of the United States. These systems would begin to rotate one another, but wouldn't necessarily merge like they would in scenario 2. And now looking at the latest model run data, we do even have a fourth scenario, which we'll talk a little bit more about when I show you the European model. But let's go ahead and kind of draw these pictures out. Here's scenario number 1, future Imelda over here around Hispaniola and Humberto over here just to the northeast of the Caribbean. So as we progress day by day, we continue to see these two storms staying a good deal away from one another. Right now, as I'm looking back on it, I would put future Imelda a little bit higher up than this. I think Imelda is going to move at a bit of a faster clip than Humberto is forecasted to. Well, if they stay far away from one another, their circulation is not going to influence the path of one storm or the other, and future Imelda would continue to move up to the north, possibly even making a landfall around the coastal areas of the Carolinas, and obviously Macon, Georgia, not too far away from that. We would be in the near vicinity to receive some tropical moisture, some bands of rain, and along with that, some possible gusty winds. Scenario number 2 is where both these storms are still located where they originally are, but as you can see, they creep closer and closer to one another, and then this flow of Humberto starts to pull in future Imelda. So what would happen with this? They would no longer be 2 named storms. There would be one larger storm that would still stay out at the Atlantic coast, but this would be a good case scenario because take a look at this. It would just result in this larger storm and the stronger storm to continue to move back out into the Atlantic Ocean, well away from the eastern United States. Now, scenario 3, that Fujiwara effect I was referring to, take a look at this. You can start to see Humberto go over the top of future Imelda, and along with that, Imelda is going to continue to move over to the east of where the projected path is right now, which is going up towards South Carolina and North Carolina. This would push Humberto a little bit closer to the eastern coast of the United States. Not necessarily making a landfall, but Humberto is forecasted to be the stronger storm. So obviously this would still have some implications in terms of rip currents, maybe even some coastal flooding into areas of North Carolina and South Carolina. But I still do believe that these systems would try to stay both back out to sea, even if they do start to spin around one another during that Fujiwara effect. This would send future Imelda back out into the Atlantic Ocean, and then Imelda would be the one possibly impacting Bermuda. Now that scenario is not very likely, but let's go ahead and talk about some of the other possible scenarios that we could see according to the spaghetti models. So as of recently, over the last couple of days of us looking at this here on the weather team, you can obviously see there is a lot of jumbled spaghetti right here in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, meaning that there are some possible paths where we do see some of those situations and those scenarios play out that I was just depicting. But we can see a lot of the spaghetti plots clustered together. This is Imelda right here, so you can see there is a little bit more of a shift going towards the south and the southeast United States, even some paths of some model runs that do have a potential path going in the near vicinity of central Georgia. And then you do see Humberto back over here, good agreement that it's going to continue up to the north and the northwest and potentially take that curve up to the north and then back out into the northeast. So right now, I think this is going to be our main focus right now. Invest 94L, future Imelda, as we continue to see better model agreement, which we haven't seen too much of over the last couple of days. The better agreement the models come into, we can start to get a better picture about what's going to potentially happen. But I did mention a possible 4th scenario, and that would be this right here, according to what the European model does say. You can see a defined center of circulation right here, indicated by kind of some of this darker blue right here within the long-range European model run. This is Humberto, and future Imelda is definitely very disorganized, but it is moving a little bit faster than Humberto. This would be a scenario where Imelda just continues up to the north, and Humberto is really not influencing the path of it whatsoever. But take a look at what happens here. You can continue to see that this system goes up towards South Carolina and North Carolina, but it parks itself. It doesn't necessarily make a landfall. It may nudge itself a little bit farther inland, but if it meanders over the same area for quite a while, this could result in lots and lots of tropical moisture that continues to get dumped over the south and the southeast. That would have potential flooding concerns. Now, this is a scenario that the European model is really the only one picking up on. As of right now, we do have generally more confidence that there will be impacts over here in the south and the Atlantic coast of the United States. Not necessarily a stalling, but it is something we'll continue to monitor as of right now. All of this to say it's still there still is a good amount of uncertainty about what potentially is going to happen. Typically with tropical systems, you just have that cone forecast. Are they going to go along with what the cone said, or are they going to go outside of the cone? Typically 2 possible scenarios. Well, with this, I just named 4 possible scenarios. This is what can happen if you do have 2 tropical systems in the near vicinity of one another. There is a good degree of uncertainty. But what looks likely is maybe some increased rain chances, maybe some breezy conditions for central Georgia as we go into the beginning of next week. It will be very important to stay updated with over the course of this weekend as we get closer and closer to that time frame, which would be late Monday into early Tuesday, about potential impacts along the eastern coast of the United States and maybe even potentially in central Georgia. And also checking in with post-tropical Gabrielle, which continues to move over to the east at a very fast speed, 31 miles per hour. Still forecasted to continue to weaken, impact areas of Portugal, Spain, maybe even getting over into Morocco with just some tropical rain and some gusty winds. But Gabrielle continues to not be of concern.